Hey everybody, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Mack.
And I'm Nick. Today we're going to be reviewing the 2023 movie Air, directed by Ben Affleck. Air is a sports movie which focuses on the company Nike trying to sign Michael Jordan to their new shoe line Air. So what do we think?
Yeah,
Guys?
I think it's always kind of an event when we get the Damon Affleck movie. For example, 2019, I believe it was, we got The Last Duel, which wasn't a bad movie per se. I actually think it was wildly underrated, but this movie felt a little bit different, and I think it's because we're finally getting to see a Damon Affleck biopic of sorts, and I found it really, really enjoyable. Affleck is Phil Knight, and he doesn't trust Sonny Vaccaro at all. Matt Damon he's literally just playing the role he played in Ford v Ferrari, that optimist who's so stubborn that no one's gonna stop him, as Sonny Vaccaro. And then Viola Davis is just wonderful in this movie. I think she'll definitely, this is a best supporting actress type of consideration performance, and I think that's really interesting. I love Viola Davis. She's an absolute queen. So let me just ask you guys, what do you think of Air?
I liked it. I was really excited for this movie because, like you said, Affleck, Damon, that's just the dynamic duo. I'm a big fan of, Good Will Hunting and a lot of their movies. So I went into this with high expectations, and I wasn't disappointed. It was generally pretty funny, and it was just a good story. I'm a big Nike guy. I have a lot of their, clothes from when I was playing tennis back in the day, and I didn't really know this story of when they were kind of just a struggling company and how, obviously it's dramatized, but how, this Michael Jordan deal came in and it kind of just launched their brand. I thought it was really cool.
Well, let me tell you, boys. A lot of the marketing and the reviews surrounding this movie were saying one thing, and that was that movies were back. Personally, I saw that. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't too, I'll be honest, I was not too interested by these trailers. I was kind of memeing on the movie for a little while. I just didn't think it would be that interesting. And then I saw it, and I am happy to eat my words entirely. This movie was incredible. I really liked this movie. I think it might be one of my favorites.
You were speechless after we saw it.
I was. I was. It is an incredible movie. All of the acting, you mentioned Viola Davis specifically, but I think everyone does an amazing job, and a cast of absolute heavy-hitting A-listers.
Yeah, so I would say my journey with the movie is a little bit interesting because this was on the blacklist for a while. Then the screenplay was leaked at South by Southwest, so I got to read that. And as I was, going through that script, I was like, oh, there's some serious energy behind this script. This movie has some tempo and it has some bounce to it. And it's a screenplay that I couldn't put down, 105 pages. I read it in one night. And so I was thinking, okay, as long as Affleck nails the directing of this movie, it's going to be good. And we all know, Ben Affleck is a competent to great director. I mean, The Town is wonderful. Argo is spectacular, and I think he should have won Best Director for that. I just want to make that very clear. And so it's really cool that this movie nails what it needs to be. It nails being a biopic comedy, and like you said, Mack, it's definitely dramatized. But like Nick was saying, there's some really fun bit actors in this. I love having Chris Tucker come back. Rush Hour 4 is being made. I'm excited.
Really?
Yeah. I'm ready for Rush Hour 4.
That's sick.
Jason Bateman is in this with, I'm going to say, the worst looking wig I've seen in a movie in a long time. Seeing Jason Bateman with a mullet is not something I ever need again, and I never want it again. So let me ask you guys, what do you think of the actors in this? Nick, I know you kind of talked about how, it's a bunch of heavy hitters. Who's your favorite performance in this movie?
Oof, that's a good question. I think I am not the biggest Matt Damon fan. Anyone it's right up there with things people know about me. I'm not the biggest Matt Damon fan, but he really brought it in this movie. He brought, like you said, the energy. I think he did a great job of bringing that energy, and he really sold a lot of the emotion in that movie. There was one scene towards the end where they put in the offer to Michael Jordan, and they're waiting to hear back. For me, that scene where it's kind of montaging through a couple, days, weeks, that scene felt real. I felt the gravity and the stress of just that persistent waiting in that scene, and I feel like Damon really sold that, and that ended up being one of my favorite scenes of the movie, I think, just because it felt so real. I don't know.
Yeah, during the pitch scene when they're pitching to the Jordans, he has this great monologue kind of explaining why Michael Jordan is going to stand out with this brand. And I think Matt Damon puts so much effort into that and just like puts so much into like the word choice in that. And that to me was like his standout scene in that movie. I also got to circle back to Viola Davis, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That was the condition for Michael Jordan for the movie to be made, that Viola Davis had to play his mother, and you can see why. It's a role that she kills it. You know, she's one of the greatest actresses that's working right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, she played a mother who's just clearly concerned for her son and wants him to make the right decision, and it's just going to be that guiding force for him. And also, Jason Bateman is just like my favorite actor of all time. So I'm so happy that he was in this movie. I just love Jason Bateman.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting because my connection to not Michael Jackson. My connection to Michael Jordan, see, yeah, almost got me there. Connection to Michael Jordan is a little bit different than most people. My father grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and went to Laney High School with Michael Jordan.
Wow.
And so, you know, just because of hearing that growing up, Michael Jordan has always been my favorite basketball player of all time. Kind of being beaten out for it by Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that's its own thing. And so, because I've heard so many stories of what Michael Jordan was like as a young man, I was a little bit nervous that this would feel disingenuous, or that it would feel like it was, you know, capitulating on who he was as an individual, or, you know, just using Michael Jordan as the name, but it just be a caricature. Instead, they don't show us Michael Jordan. What do you guys think of that choice? Because Twitter, people have got opinions, so I want your guys. What do you think of this?
I was actually just going to bring this up if you didn't. So I think it's definitely, it's a very interesting choice, and I can see why it's so polarizing. It's very distracting, you know, having the person that everyone's vying after this whole movie not talk. They don't show his face except in that scene that Mack talked about. Mm-hmm. But it's not the actor who's playing him face. It's actual clips of the real Michael Jordan, which is the best scene in the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. But if they did have Michael Jordan, I almost get why they didn't, because the focus is not on him. The focus is on the story around the shoe. So I can see why they did it that way, but ultimately it is pretty distracting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's honestly my only issue with the movie is that it just detracts, because you can tell that they are creating scenes intentionally so that you don't see his face.
Yes.
So if they were to be more natural with it, I don't think I'd have as big of an issue, but it feels forced. But kind of talking about framing, cinematography, things like that, this movie is sneakily well shot. Do you guys kind of want to touch on that, like the cinematography behind this movie?
I think when we saw it, there were just some shots you were looking at me being like, what is that? Like there were a lot of close-ups of it, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that.
I think there was just like
specifically.
Like there was just a lot of interesting tracking shots in the movie, I think, and a lot of weird close-ups, I think. But I like you said, I like the opening montage of it where the cinematography kind of transitions from how it would look in the 80s to making it more modernized, if you know what I mean. I thought that was a cool sequence.
I think it was shot fine. I don't think it was particularly amazing, honestly. I think it was very competently shot. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the movie had like a film grain on it and definitely some interesting color grading to really cement it in that time period and in that world, which I thought really went a long way for pretty minor tweaks.
Yeah, so when I talk about like how it's sneakily well shot, just the shots of the shoes. This movie is a sneakerhead's like paradise. This movie is about shoes, and when we first see the prototype Air Jordan 1s, there's that circular tracking shot around the shoe, and we get like the full 360 experience, and it was awesome. Like it's just a well shot, and like, you know, it establishes how important these shoes are. You know what I'm saying? Because the Air Jordan 1 ends up becoming the most revolutionary shoe of all time, I think we can say. I think it's the most iconic shoe ever.
That's probably fair, yeah.
I think that's a fair thing to say. At least that's the claim this movie makes. And I think it's really, really awesome.
And the fact that they don't show it until like the final pitch meeting is also cool because like it's the big build up
Yep.
to it.
So this is an 80s movie, so it's got some 80s soundtrack songs in it. What do you guys think about the soundtrack?
I'll let you take this one.
I like the soundtrack quite a bit. I've been listening to Sister Christian on repeat, since hearing the ads. It's which the marketing kind of focused around that particular song, which
Yep.
only plays for like 5-10 seconds in the movie. A bit of a weird choice. This is tangentially related to the soundtrack, but there was one line that I thought was a little cheesy when they're in the office, Jason Bateman and Matt Damon, and Jason Bateman goes, "Oh yeah, have you heard that new song that just came out, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA?" I'm like, yeah, I get that, yes, it did just come out in the movie, but it just feels a little ham-fisted when you say it that way.
I'm gonna agree with you, but also like if anyone can deliver ham-fisted lines, it's Jason Bateman because everything about him is ham-fisted.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I will say I think there's some killer needle drops in this, and I think someone had some real intentionality behind the soundtrack for this movie,
Yes.
and I think that's really cool. So, what are you guys gonna give Air on a scale from 1 to 10? Nick, you want to take us away first?
Sure, I'll start us off with a high point. This movie totally blew my expectations out of the water with the premise. I'm not a shoe guy or a sports guy, but I walked out of this movie loving it. I also we saw the Mario movie right after, Mack and I ended up laughing actually more at this than I did at the Mario movie. So this movie is, despite the Michael Jordan weirdness, this movie was an incredibly positive experience for me. So I am going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't really have too many negative things to say about it. I'm a big sports fan. I love all the actors in the movie, and it's just very good screenplay also. Definitely could be an awards contender, I think, next year. I'm going to give it an 8. Generally a very, very fun experience.
Yeah, I think babyface Matt Damon and Ben Affleck team up again to give us a great movie. Air Jordan 1, more like Air Jordan 8, because yeah, I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think this movie is more than competent. It's actually quite enjoyable and one that I'm definitely going to rewatch. I recommend it to a lot of people, and I think it was a slam dunk. And with that horrible basketball pun, we'll see you next time.